Simon T. Bailey, Larry Lynch here. We are live with the USPCA. So it's great to have you, my friend, and our chance to be back together in front of this group, I think for the first time in about 8 years. So this is great. So for our USPCA members who have not met Simon, this is going to be an exciting evening for you. For our members who have seen Simon, I've asked them to laugh at least once so that you'll bring that back, because I know when we did the valuations before, that was something everybody always remembered. But Simon and I were having a little conversation before we went live just a moment ago, and kind of talking about some of the things he and I have been through and the things we've seen. And I was sharing with him in my day-to-day work with the National Restaurant Association, I tend to be our referenced elder in our leadership team that they come to and say, "You've lived a long time," which I'm usually insulted by. So I swear I'm not that old. But it got me thinking the other day as we're going through this and how worried everybody is and how unsure they are about what's happening. And I thought, I got back to, my parents grew up in the time of the Depression and they pushed through it. We had a great family and things went well. And, going into the 60s, kind of a fast forward, because there were some ups and downs, and they got through the Depression, World War II happened, Korea happened. And then, I can remember as a little kid, all the things about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Didn't understand what it was about, didn't understand, Khrushchev banging his shoe on the table at the UN. But I knew we had to hide under a desk if there was a nuclear bomb coming, which of course we now know is the dumbest thing you could possibly do because you were going to get wiped out. But I remember having to understand fallout shelters and the kinds of food you had to have. And as a kid, there was an element of me being scared. I can imagine what my parents were going through, because this was something we had never faced before as a country, but we got through it. We kind of pushed our way through Vietnam. The oil embargo in the 70s, where I remember being in gas lines and not being able to get gasoline for my car. It was rationed if you're odd, even tag numbers in New Jersey at the time. I mean, it was just the crazy stuff. I bought my first house with a 9.5% mortgage rate. And I was thrilled to get that because my sister got hers at like 19% interest rate. And I remember the pundits all going, "You'll never see single digit mortgage rates again. They're gone." Every news story. And of course, we did not have the cacophony of what we now loosely call news in even the 70s that we have today. But people were scared. People made dumb decisions with their mortgages. And you can count these things. You and I were together on 9/11. I still vividly remember you and I coming in from Dulles, because we flew in together and we were in the cab, coming in on 66, and we were both remarking what an absolutely spectacular evening it was. It was cool. We had the windows down in the cab. Got in the hotel, looking forward to the next morning. I was supposed to be out at Langley for a breakfast. You had a meeting with your clients. We had somebody else with us who had another set of meetings that day. And I decided to, as I do so well since my breakfast meeting got canceled, to sponge off of yours. And I remember having some conversations about what a gorgeous day it was, maybe going to play hooky and go play golf. As we're having this conversation, our associate came running in and had us turn on the TV, and in an instant, our world turned upside down. Now, for everybody else, you'd have to know Simon well. Simon was then glued to me while I spent about 3 days trying to find a car to get us back. It was quite the fight to get anybody to do anything, because as you can imagine, trains are shut down in DC, forget an airplane flight. And so I finally got our office after about 3 days to get a car for us. And I was so excited. And I zipped over to Union Station. And as soon as I walked into the national car rental space, I'm hearing them yelling, "There are no one-way rentals." Oh, no. And they wanted to throw us out of the hotel because the hotel was we were in closest proximity to the Pentagon. So they wanted to bring the families in and the people who had been killed. So we're thinking, what the heck do we do now? And thank God when I walked up to the counter, they said, "Oh yeah, Mr. Lynch, we have your car." So poor Simon, who has never been on a road trip like this before, got dragged not only the entire route from South Carolina or from Southern Virginia all the way down to Florida. I made him stop at south of the border. And so anybody that's been in that kind of North Carolina, South Carolina borderline as you're driving south knows that it's an interesting little place. But we dragged Simon in, we dragged him home, and we got back, and it rocked our world. But I think one of the things that got us through it then is Disney didn't know what it was going to do. We were both working for Disney at the time. We were in lots of meetings where things were changing. And rather than trying to say it's going to go back to normal, which is let's take it a day at a time. And lots of things changed for us. Some of the things we expected, some of the things we definitely didn't expect. But we owned the change, so much so that we literally, the two of us, without ever talking to each other, resigned on the exact same day, and left the Disney company and started forging our own destinies and controlled it. Lots of risk, lots of things that could have gone wrong, but we weren't going to let all the noise make our decision for us. We were going to make the decision to do this ourselves. And we've had a few things happen subsequent to that. Obviously, 2008 and then the real estate crash and the market crash. We can go down the laundry list. But you know what? As we look back, you can look forward and realize that you come back to some norm. And we talk about a new norm, but as I look back, the new norms really aren't that new. It's a slight adjustment of some kind based on what we do to control our future. And so one of the reasons I wanted to bring Simon in for everybody tonight is because Simon speaks to this so well. For those of us that heard from Simon a few years ago, he has so morphed his business in that period of time. And, he and I get together for breakfast pretty frequently and kind of bounce a lot of these ideas around and talk about, in addition to kind of reminiscing about the old days together and working together, really some of the cool stuff he's doing and the messaging that's out there. And so this is something we're going to be doing on a regular basis. My game plan is twice a week for the foreseeable future. Because remember, I don't look that far out. So I'm saying foreseeable future. As long as I can touch it and I can make a difference in our members' lives, my goal is to make sure we do that. So I really thought, who better than my friend Simon Bailey to kind of open us up tonight to not only inspire us, but to instruct us on things we begin to do. Because I think it's the perfect thing we need to tee us up for the speakers that we're going to have in the coming weeks that can address all of this. So Simon, I'm going to throw my avatar up here. I'm going to put myself on mute. Uh-oh, did I mute you? Wait a minute, I've lost Simon's voice. So I got to get Simon's voice back here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
All right. I don't know what I did, Simon, but I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you again. And Larry, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm literally, when you were talking about 9/11, I was reliving our road trip and stopping at south of the border. What a great experience. So if you're going to spark your restart, there are three things that I want you to know right off the bat. Number one, the most important economy you have to protect and grow is the one between your ears. That's the first thing. Second thing, in the words of Dr. Robert Schuller, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I know every one of you, a part of this association, are tough-minded. You would not be in this business if you were not. And not only are you tough, you love what you do. The third thing I want you to think about is when everybody is zigging and running and ducking for cover, somebody has the ability to go the opposite direction. So here's the first thing I want you to think about. Wherever you are right now, just take a minute and just breathe. In fact, everybody just take a deep breath and let it out and breathe. It's going to be not just okay, it's going to be awesome. Because when you spark the restart, you do it based on information. Read this next slide with me, and I'll just let you read it because I think you'll find it very interesting. When you think about, this came out in 1857, October 1857, the mindset was, oh my goodness, it is so horrible. So when I talk about spark your restart, our country has been there before, and here we are again. We all have a choice to think about how we're going to show up in the world. So how many of you at some level feel trapped by the media, by everything that's swirling around, sheltering in place, social distancing, which really we should probably say physical distancing, right? And I believe in the midst of those who sometimes feel trapped, there are those who are pivoting and saying, wait a minute, I'm going to zig while everybody is zagging. So here's something I want us to be very, very mindful of. What are the words that we are using that are causing us to have hope, to believe in a better future, to innovate, and to think about what can I do? All right. And what are those words that we need to consider that stop us, that what I call words that snuff? So words that snuff, words that spark. Be mindful of your language. And if we were to do an exercise right now, I would have us take a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle, and just take 30 seconds and say, what words have I been using as of late that really are snuffing out my hope? And then what are the words that are going to spark my restart? All right. So I'll share a couple of examples with you. This is Warren Dito. And Warren and I, believe it or not, used to work for Larry at Disney. Warren left Disney after Larry and I left, and his parents owned Puff and Stuff Catering. So I was talking to him on Sunday and I said, Warren, how's it going? And he said, he's had to lay people off. All of his catering events have been canceled. And instead of lamenting about woe is me, the sky is falling, he said, guess what? We now offer a family meal that we prepare for $75, and we will actually deliver it to your house. So he said, what are you doing on Friday night? And I said, I'm hanging with my kids. He says, guess what? This coming Friday, we're going to come and deliver a family meal to you for my family. And he said, it's on me. And all I want you to do is put a shout or post it on social media and tell others what we're doing. And I was like, what? And I said, absolutely. I'd be happy to do it because of our friendship for 20 plus years. So this is something he decided that, wait a minute, my events are canceled. I've had to lay people off, but I'm going to think differently. Now, if you were to go to his website and sign up for this, one of the things he said at the bottom, and I just want to read this to you because I thought it was very interesting. He says, due to limited resources at this time, we are unable to make our usual customizations and changes to the family menus. If this one doesn't work for you, we hope an upcoming menu will. Thank you for considering Puff and Stuff Catering. So this is what they're doing. They're thinking differently. He's going the opposite way. He said, because this is all about not just survival, but how do we thrive? So Rooster and Till, popular restaurant over in Tampa, and the owners of the restaurant, after having to close it because of COVID-19, said, wait a minute, what if we begin to offer a takeout that provides comfort food like fried chicken and short ribs, comfort food that people like during a crisis? What if we open this up in lieu of having a restaurant that people can't come to? Automatically, they are going the opposite direction because they're not paying attention to the noise that's around them. So I have a doctor's appointment and I get a call yesterday from the doctor's office, and I'm thinking they were calling to say, we're going to reschedule your appointment because this is the actual medical office that I go to. And they said, no, do you have your phone? I said, yes. They said, just download this app. And once you download it to your phone, we're going to give you a code that allows you to not have to pay for the app. And once you download the code, you can have a teledoctor appointment with the doctor. And oh, by the way, you still need to pay your $60 copay. So all of a sudden, they have figured a way that, okay, if because of physical distancing, how do we now go in the opposite direction and do something different? Here's what I want us thinking about. When you spark your restart, you have the attitude, can do, must do, will do. Men and women who spark their restart have the attitude, I'm going to say it again, can do, must do, will do. All right, now let's go on. How many of you remember Blue Apron? For those of you who may not know, Blue Apron, if you were to Google and look at all the headlines, For over a year, they've been trying to get investors to invest in their concept, and to no avail. Nobody was buying that. People would pay $60 for a family meal that is delivered to their house that they have to put together. Well, guess what? Last week, Blue Apron's stock spiked and increased over 500%. They are now hiring workers and in their California and New Jersey fulfillment centers to keep up with the demand. Here's my question for you. What can you do right now, wherever you are? What is your can do, must do, will do? So how many of you are Netflix fans? Okay. Can you imagine, just think with me for a moment, because of the Netflix party that is available, that you can have individuals in two different parts of the country come together by simply putting in Netflix Party on the Google Chrome browser, accessing the Netflix Party site, and now they can watch a movie in two different locations on their laptop, communicating via chat and watching the same movie. Because Netflix understands when everybody is zigging, they're going to zag. Now, can you imagine what the big movie houses are thinking right now and how this is a disruptor? Because, yeah, when the theaters open up again, people are going to go back. But guess what? Now that they've tried something and it works and they can do it when they want to do it, it's the can do, must do, will do mindset. Now, this is Johnny Rhodes. Johnny is a chef in Houston, Texas. He opened up a restaurant in 2018 called Indigo. Indigo has had to close, obviously, because of COVID-19. And when he was interviewed, he said that he always wanted to open a grocery store. So now he's opened up a grocery store that actually opens up tomorrow in Houston, Texas, called Broham Soul Food and Grocery Store. And he will be able to provide items in the grocery store from the Indigo kitchen because he had to zig when everybody else was zagging. My question, what is it that you can do? Okay. Now, this is Jeff. Jeff and I have shared the stage together in events in Las Vegas. Jeff is a juggler, and obviously Las Vegas right now is dark. The hotels are closed. There's no conventions, not just in Las Vegas, but all over the country. So what does Jeff decide to do? He decides to post in LinkedIn that he's doing a live stream juggling workshop for free that he offers. And you see what time it's offered, and he did it, and it was a hit. So imagine parents who are at home with kids who are now going through school online can take this hour, take this time to begin to juggle. And don't you think that parents are going to remember him once, obviously, he goes back to the Las Vegas hotels to work, but he also has this opportunity where he's reached a whole nother audience because he decided to zig, not just zag, and spark his restart. What can I do? Don't wait for anybody. So I came across this story that absolutely blew me away. A couple decided to create an app for those who during COVID-19 want to be married. So if you were to Google wed, you would specifically walk through how you could get married through this app. And obviously practicing physical distancing and all of those things, they've arranged it. They have all the legal documents, they have the officiant, all of the things that are required to be a legally married couple. So when I talk about Spark Your Restart, the question that I want bouncing around your head and why I show these examples to you is what can you do? So I put together 7 quick ideas to spark your thinking. And I believe it just starts with, what do I just make a decision? Make a decision that I'm going to do something today in my very own business to bring this closer to home. My calendar was wiped out in March and April, like gone. Business, well over 6 figures of business that had been contracted, it canceled or postponed. We've had half of the clients move their dates to 2021, but some of them canceled and said, hey, we want our money back, or we're not going to pay you. It's real. So I had to make a decision. Guess what? I am now in the virtual webinar online learning business, and I'm still being booked as a speaker. We closed a couple of deals yesterday for August and October from organizations that are optimistic like I am, that business is going to come back. But what I recognize, I had to do some practical things. I would get up every morning over the last 3 weeks, and I would take a shower, brush my teeth, I would get dressed, I would be show ready as if somebody was calling me for a podcast interview, a webinar, and I just got in a mindset that I was going out the door. Not necessarily get on a plane, but I wanted to be in that mode like I had something to do. The other thing I did, and this is just my practice, and I'm not trying to impress you or anything, I made a list of 50 things I needed to do. 50 things I needed to do. And in this list, I wrote down what are all of the potential revenue opportunities, and I came up with about 11 of these that I've reached out to over the last 3 weeks, because I made a decision. You know what? I'm 51. I can sit here and cry me a river. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm going to get up and go for it. Be authentic. Being authentic is being in touch with where you are, to say, okay, I may need to call the mortgage company and take advantage of whatever they're offering during the crisis. You may say you have to call your car note, where your car note is being paid, or your credit card company. You be authentic, be honest, and then keep it moving. And then the next thing, be intentional. Here's the thing, if you're taking notes, one thing I would invite you to do is to write down, serving is the new selling. So what can I do to be intentional about reaching out to perhaps customers that I haven't heard from in a while, just to check in and say, how are you? How's it going? What are you up to? And then when I say focus on member love, all of you have members, or what I would call friends, people that follow you, people that are fans of your work. How do we come alongside them and say, what is it that I can help you do? What is it that you need? What would it be like for you to say, I'll do your grocery shopping, I'll have gloves on, I'll have my mask on, whatever it is. How can we begin to extend ourselves and show love during this time? And then a very practical thing to spark your restart is to look at your behaviors, your habits, the way you think, the way you show up, and say, what behaviors or habits do I need to park? Okay. For me, I need to park because sometimes I have this negative gremlin in the back of my head that's telling me this story. So I need to put that in park. And then what are those behaviors or habits or words I need to start saying, things I need to start doing? And then what are those things you already do well that have allowed you to be successful? How do you do more of those things? Give you a quick example. Back in 2013, I went to LinkedIn out in California, Santa Barbara, and began to engage with them to put 3 courses on their platform. And so the courses, they're on the platform, and LinkedIn sends me a check that's digitally deposited into my account every month, and I really didn't do anything for it. So I said, wait a minute, now that I'm in this particular situation, right? How do I now go back to LinkedIn and say, wait a minute, you've paid me X. Is there an opportunity for me to make more? And I was on a call today, and the answer is yes. And I'm going to have to do some work. And I figured out exactly what I need to do. So what are those opportunities that you've never seen before that you need to accelerate? What do you need to park? What do you need to start? What do you need to accelerate? One more thought around this. So yesterday, I've been working in my office since about probably 6 a.m. And I decided midday to just get up, go outside, and I'm out in the back of my house and I notice a turtle. Now, this may not mean anything to you, but a turtle is in my neighbor's yard and there's no fence. And I'm like a 10-year-old. I get my camera out and I am taking a picture of the turtle. You would have thought, and so there's the turtle, and I'm taking a picture of the turtle. I'm like, oh my God, it's a turtle. And I just kind of walked away because I was taking it all in. And I came back out a little bit later. Turtle had made its way down to a little pond area and it was gone. But then I decided to sit outside and I noticed all of a sudden this bird, I thought it was an eagle, it just comes out of nowhere, swoops down into the pond, lake, whatever you want to call it, and picks up and just takes off. And I'm like, no way. And so I decided just to sit there and watch this experience. And sure enough, it was a hawk and it comes back and it's perched on a little branch 25 feet away from me, I guess waiting for its next opportunity for a meal. But my point is, the hawk has probably been there before. The turtle has probably been there before. And oh, by the way, did I tell you that I heard the birds chirping yesterday morning? I'd never heard them before. I'd never seen the turtle. I'd never paid attention to the hawk. And what I realized for me, my start is to pay attention, to see what's going on around me. Divergent thinking. I could spend an hour talking about divergent thinking. I won't. I want all of you to go and get the movie. You can get it on Netflix, called Divergent. And it will blow you away as to how to think differently. I'll give you the best example of divergent thinking, an example that all of us know. When you look at what Steve Jobs did with disrupting 3 different industries, the music industry with the iPod, the phone, which before the iPhone came out, there were other phones on the market, but the divergent thinking was to put apps into the phone. And Apple gets a piece of the cut of every app that goes into their platform. And then the third industry is when Steve Jobs sold Pixar to Disney for $7.4 billion. And Pixar has disrupted how animated movies are made, all because he saw something. What is your approach to being a divergent thinker? When everybody is zigging, you zag. Look at Uber. We didn't know 12 years ago we needed Uber, but Uber looked at what everybody else could see, taxi cab industry, and totally flipped the model and put the power of the experience in the palm of a hand, where now you bring Uber to you. It's divergent thinking. I recently had the opportunity to experience Airbnb. I'm late to the party, and everything I did was through the app. And I decided to leave a review for the couple whose apartment I stayed in, thanking them. And I said, Airbnb does not own any real estate. Can you imagine? But they have more control of everything around the world when it comes to free lodging or lodging that has to be paid for, because it's divergent thinking. Finally, what are you going to do to reemerge? Get ready to reemerge. Get ready to restart, reboot, realign, reset. Because I believe when we get on the other side of COVID-19, and oh, by the way, you know why it's called 19? because that means there were 18 other flus that perhaps they didn't put a number to or tell us about. So then that means there's probably a 20 and 21 and 23 coming. I'm just saying, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. So we have not seen the last of this movie, okay? But I think we have to decide, how are we going to spark our restart? And in a moment, I'm going to come off the screen and we'll go back to Larry. We'll open up the chat, answer any questions that you have. But I just want you to look at this list. Think about the stories and the examples I shared with you. And if you were to pick one of these, which one for you resonates the most? As a personal chef, which one resonates with you the most and you're going to take ownership of? All right, it starts now, okay? Larry, with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and
I'll come back.
Here we are.
So there is, but a few things I want to touch on. I know we have Q&A on your screens, and hopefully, and Rob will text me if I'm wrong on this, because he's seeing it from a participant perspective. But I know some of our members have popped up some notes, and so if you have questions, please share them. I think, Simon, you can see them as well, but we'll definitely address those. But a couple of things you said I thought that really resonated with me. First of all, make sure that Warren knows I'm sending him a membership application since he's now serving people at home. So he will see that tomorrow. I will actually email it to him. So be prepared for that. I love the fact that you talked about divergent thinking, because oftentimes we think about anything from the iPhone to Uber. We always talk about disruption, and it's almost become almost too commonplace when we talk about today. And Steve Jobs was definitely not known as a solid leader in terms of how he handled people, but he was a brilliant thinker. And I always remember the fact that as they were developing the iPhone, the common comment was, well, nobody wants one. He says they will when they see it. He was trying to build things for what he thought people wanted, not what the market was telling him people, because we'd still be on BlackBerries if that was the case, right? So I think it's that bold piece that tells you, step out of that box, and you know what? Take that risk. So if we put COVID-19 aside for just a moment, how do you get people to kind of dig deep inside to say, everything that I see tells me I can't do this, but you know what? I have to. What's that inner Steve Jobs that says, I know everybody says that we don't need an iPhone, but I'm going to make one anyhow. They're going to need one.
Right. And Larry, think about it. When you and I were both at Disney, we left 2003. The country is going to war with Iraq for the second time. Corporations were laying off by the hundreds of thousands, and we didn't pay attention to the noise. We had what I would call fortitude. And fortitude, I put up a video on LinkedIn today explaining that fortitude is mental strength that a person experiences, that when they go through adversity, they can do it with courage because they have fortitude, or which comes from the word fortify. So they're strong, they have grit, they have a gut, and they're like, wait a minute, I believe in me, and I'm gonna do what I've always wanted to do. I'm not gonna wait.
That is a clear way of driving that forward. So our members really need to dig in there and do that. The other thing I thought you talked about, which I thought was interesting, was that ability to reemerge. It's kind of interesting, just from my own perspective, as we're working on some of the, where do we go with the National Restaurant Association perspective. And I was in a meeting yesterday. And one of the reasons I look very relaxed here is because I've been glued to this damn chair since 8 o'clock this morning on Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. So when we're done tonight, I just can't wait to get up and walk around the block. But we talk about that reemergence. One of the things I started bringing up is, I know all the signs we're saying is that we haven't mitigated this virus yet, but we need to start thinking now, because it will happen, and we can't wait till it has happened. We got to have those plans. People need to get back on their feet, and I think organizations, whether it's USPCA or the Restaurant Association or other, have an obligation to its members and to the public to drive that there. So I appreciate you talking about the reemerge, because reemerge can't happen after it's all done. Reemergence has to be a thought process taking place now, and it does tie, I think, a little bit of that divergent thinking. I think it ties a little bit about that reinvention. So, I appreciate you bringing that piece of it up. And
Yeah,
one of the
and
other things I wanted to bring up too, go ahead, I'm sorry.
when I talk about reemerge, it's really how do we come out of the cocoon of fear and just go for it? Like just reemerge, go for it. Don't wait.
Yeah. The other thing you talked about too in there, which I thought was important, was sharing. And I think about how important that is in the framework of an association. So I think there are things, and I think what's unique about COVID-19, where it's so hard for a national organization to be able to go in and say, gosh, members should do this universally, because some of the data I was seeing tonight before I came into the meeting was seeing where we are in New York versus where we are in 48 other states, like New York, New Jersey, everybody else. And not that there's anything emergent that says it's over, but I think what it does say is that advice I give to this person here may not be relevant to this person over there. And so I think part of that sharing ties to that. It's that ability to reach out into your community. Now's the time to become visible in your local community, that
Yes.
hyperactivity. And some of it's giving away. I think some of it is rethinking your business model. So it becomes, whether it's something that you can monetize today, it's something you may be able to monetize tomorrow, but it's very specific. I was trading emails earlier today with one of our members from Washington State, and that's been hard hit. Washington was one of the first epicenters for all of this, with the Kirkland nursing home, where they had all the initial deaths. And that's had a profound impact on folks in Washington. It was interesting that our member sent me this note, and she had actually used some information we sent them to send to the state about being exempted from their stay-at-home order. And they came back and said, well, we kind of understand this, but you need to cook from your house and deliver, which is something we don't have our members do for all the health and safety reasons related to food safety, not viral transmission. Right. And I said, this is great. This is what happens when you have people who aren't in our industry write things back. But it also speaks to the fact that may be there, but you and I were talking before we went on the air here that, someplace like this, like North and South Dakota and Montana might be far less impacted this today than some of the others are. So I think my roundabout way of saying this is that I think everybody, whether it's giving back to your community, this is the chance to be part of something bigger, and not to exploit a virus, but recognize this is the chance to stand out, to do something for your local community. And those things come back and pay back to you in dividends. And I think that's what we sometimes tend to forget, is that, we're probably stretching it now. It's hard to get the money. And I will share with you that one of the things I've been working hard at with our members is getting all the information and forms and everything we can out on the CARES Act, because the government is providing money, and thank God our members are eligible for that. There's things they can do from unemployment. So we want to keep a cash stream going for those people who just can't quite get a way to be able to keep their businesses going. But even in the midst of that, I think the importance of finding a way to give back, to engage in the community, to do more things, I think it is an investment today in what's going to deliver where we're past this tomorrow. What do you think?
Exactly. And I think we have to consider, what are the practical things that I can do right now within my power? Something that I've started doing is I do a video every single day just on my phone, and I post a video 7 a.m. faithfully on LinkedIn. We take that same video, upload it to YouTube, use that link, put it out on Twitter, and now we're up to 40 videos just every day. And it's that diligence. You're like, where's the business coming from? Well, now we have people say, hey, I watched your video and I referred you to somebody that wants you to do a virtual webinar. So I think everyone listening to us right now, Larry, they have to think about surround sound marketing. Am I doing video? Am I writing? Am I posting? Every single day, at least Monday through Saturday. And if you say, that's not my competency, do you have a loved one or someone that will do it for you? Perhaps
Sure.
As a trade out, but what can you do to now broadcast yourself every day in every way?
And it's so easy to do today. I mean, I made the conscious decision to invest in this webinar system, which I'm so glad I did, because it actually works. I will tell everybody, this is the first night we've tried it out, which is why Simon accidentally got muted by me, but we'll work through those kinks. That's, I don't do bad for a boomer. Okay. Let me just put that on the table now. So
good.
So I'm going to throw we got a couple of questions. Laura McDougall from New England was asking, how do we navigate the channels of personal chefing and offering relevant rules and laws to offer diverse services, meaning doing things that need licenses from closed government offices or commercial kitchens, or offering virtual cooking tips to a client we drop groceries to and still charge them full fee or 90%. I'll give you my take, but I'd love to hear yours as well. Um, at the end of the day, I think it's hard to get. I have yet to figure out the workaround with government entities because it's so sporadic. I've seen where nobody in some places right now in health departments are doing health inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw a report last week from the Association of Food and Drug Officials. And as I was sharing on a media call, it's anecdotal in as much as only 21 responded. But there are some places on the more local markets where apparently they have more time because COVID hasn't hit them as hard, that health inspectors are still doing it. So I think we always have to be conscious that if we try and push the envelope and go outside of what the laws are, that it could come back to bite us, if not now, later. But doesn't this come back to, in terms of answering Laura's question, pushing it out there and trying to do something different? But it's also a lot of the one-on-one contact with your client. So the question is, can we still charge them the full fee or 90%? Isn't that the value proposition that you have to go out to be able to get with the client and say, this is what we're capable of doing? I shared with a member earlier today, is it possible to do the shopping? There's a lot of value in shopping.
Yes.
And I've already been frustrated because I don't know if you remember Frank Giannis, who used to work with us at Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Frank's now deputy director at the FDA overseeing this stuff. And Frank and I've had this conversation on the availability of things like produce and so forth. And we know it's available coming in from the producers.
Right.
It's just unfortunately getting hoarded, and people don't understand the fact it's got a minimal shelf life. But where our members are really skilled is picking out the right foods, the right vegetables, customizing.
Mm-hmm.
You pointed to Blue Apron earlier, and I think one of the struggles they've had is that it's really cool, but I still don't like to cook. This is,
Right.
This is the real value for a personal chef, is that they take it the whole way. But is it possible now, and I think it kind of addresses Laura's question, is what can you negotiate with the client? Can I get it? Can I do the shopping so it's exactly what you want? It's fresh. Can I prepare those menus for you and then maybe do a video tutorial on how to prep it? It's going to get you the standby, and it's not the perfect answer to it at this point, but at least it may get you somewhere. But it's really starting, you got your existing client base. It's starting that dialogue with your existing clients to see how I can address what you need now, in the framework of all the weird stuff with COVID-19. But then a little bit of this outreach that you're talking about, getting out there and publicly talking to people and saying, here's other things that I can do. And let's talk about what that looks like. What do you think?
So it scares me. 17 years later, we still think so much alike because I had the idea of a video experience. So I say, number one, always lead with, I'm a safety conscious personal chef. And you put that out front and center. I'm a safety conscious personal chef, because all people want to hear is safety. And then to your point, videotaping the prepping, how it all comes together. Let them see it from start to finish, and they can watch and see in their own eyes that you take safety to heart as you're preparing different things. And then the third thing is, please, ma'am, please, sir, don't lower your fee or your price, because you are worth your creativity. Add value and tell them, here is the value that I can bring you. And if they don't recognize that because they're trying to nickel and dime you, then perhaps that's not your customer long term. Because how that impacts you is emotionally, you begin to say, well, am I really worth it? Am I that good? And it impacts your confidence. Now, I realize in this economy, we've got to work with everyone. But if they understand the value add that you can bring to them, and you keep your fee integrity, you're going to be better off, and they're going to be better off.
Well, I think there's a certain degree to really understand, to your point, understanding the client base. So, I mean, there are people now who, thank God, knock on wood, some of us are still fully employed. I make it a point, I've increased my tips to, the Instacart drivers and other people, because I can afford it right now. And I hope that continues until we're on the other side of this. But I think it's really understandable. But we recognize there are people who have hardships. But then there's the kind of the in between people who, they're okay, but what do I do to leverage this? Or can I get something from somebody else? And I think that's your point.
Yeah.
Is you kind of have different ways you need to address it in this current environment. But you don't want to lower your standards. You don't want to lower your value prop, because it is always hard to claw your way back from that. If you've got this client base over here that decided they were going to take advantage of you during this time, and people were going to do it. I mean, I've seen the number of email scams that I've seen, phishing scams that have increased exponentially since it started. It's weird stuff that just brings out odd behaviors in people. Stuff I'm seeing in email in the last couple of weeks are a little scary. So would you agree that's kind of where you're going with this?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Spot on.
Perfect. Then another question we had, and I'll address this one because it's a little more narrow based, but Jessica from Seattle wrote and was asking about what we said about cooking in our homes. We still strongly discourage it. I mean, as an association, we can't forbid anything, but this is not related to COVID. This is cooking in your home and delivering. This is really all about, well, it is about cooking in your home and delivering. It's not about cooking in your home for yourself. The problem with cooking in your home and delivering is all a food safety issue. It's recognizing there's time temperature control. There are things that you can do getting from point A to point B, things that could be in your kitchen that the client doesn't realize can cause an allergy. So we've always said, stick with a commercial kitchen. That's hard. I recognize that. But at the end of the day, even getting beyond COVID-19, we still don't want somebody with a foodborne illness. And that's part of the risk with that. So that's why we continue to discourage that. It was very odd that the question I got today, one of our members actually came from the government in Washington who said, cook it at home and deliver it. So it was counterintuitive. Again, I can't say no, but I can certainly say it is not a good idea. So something to avoid. So I just want to make sure I addressed that. I do want to say Anisha Anand wrote to us and said, one of her suggestions, offer weekly recipes with menus. And I think that gets back to what you were talking about, pushing things out there, getting the information out in front of people, getting out in front so that people know who you are.
Right.
You know, it's an interesting time, and you were kind of alluding to a little bit of that at the beginning of your presentation, that right now people are at home. I mean, I've been glued to this damn house for going on 3 weeks now.
Right.
So, hopefully my wife's not watching. I know my son is, but we'll deal with that later. But you know what I'm saying is that people are home and you can't go out and dine. So this is something that, again, in this disease, it's hitting some areas differently than others. You got to be smart. You got to be focused on your health. You got to be focused on your client's health, and then build your business and your concepts around all that.
Yeah. You know, I'm not a chef, but what would it be like parents who have kids at home and they're looking for that activity to just involve their kids? You could do virtual cooking and they could go through something with you on a dish, how to make it. And the kids are doing something as you are teaching them on Facebook Live or whatever channel you want to engage. It might be the Trojan horse way to get into a household that never thought about having a personal chef to say, wait a minute, my kid's been cooking. What if? So it's just divergent thinking. What can you do?
Perfect. And by the way, you inspired Anisha. She just wrote back and said, when you were talking earlier, I made a list in kids cooking class via Zoom. So
boom,
pretty inspired our members. So good job. David Boyd, also from Seattle. And so our Seattle members are telling me, and we're going to do this, there's a lot of confusion. The delivery side of things are specifically declared essential, but I would love any insights to whether we can still prepare in clients' homes. The note I said tonight was having a little concern. One of our members sent to me about that it can't be done. I'm going to do a little more homework, and I will get back to our members in Seattle because we need that answer. And it is odd because I think it just depends on who's asking the question, how it's being asked. Again, I go back to the National Restaurant Association side here in Orlando. As you know, we are locked down. We can't go anywhere. We're all housebound. We're going a little stir crazy. But I did ask for so that people can continue to get their certification certificates, and we can modify their exams so they can continue to work. We did get an exemption. So part of our team, we normally have 100 people in the Orlando office, and we have 6 a couple of days a week. So we did make some modification to that. So we're there. You know, one of the other things I wanted to touch on, which we didn't talk about tonight, is stress levels, right? And you know, I was talking earlier when I was thinking back to the days of I'll even go back to my own time when I was thinking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I didn't know where the heck Cuba was. I was living in New Jersey at the time. I had no idea what the heck a nuclear weapon was. You know, I was kind of familiar from history with, you know, with Hiroshima and with Nagasaki, but you know, it still was so far away and such a long time ago for me. But basically, we had, you know, coming out of Philadelphia, a morning newspaper and an evening newspaper. We had a couple of television stations. You know, Walter Cronkite would get on and he would report the news. Walter was never the news; he was the reporter. And so we in Philadelphia we had 3 television stations, and you know, news came on for half an hour late at night. National, I don't remember local news. Now we're blasted, right? We have the internet, and it's not just new. I mean, everybody's a journalist,
Right.
and as the spokesperson for all things food science and industry for the Restaurant Association, I'm amazed at some of the questions that I get asked by these quote unquote journalists. So stress levels have to go up. I mean, you're bombarded by this. I can't tell you when I come home how often when I am home, how often I leave this room and I go out and turn off the television because somebody in the family has the news on. It's like, turn it off. It hasn't changed. Trust me. I will let you know if there's anything different you need to hear about.
Yep.
And that focus on energy. I get up in the morning, kind of quick, funny side story. Helen started badgering me for a Peloton back in September, and I thought, another fad. There must be someplace else less expensive we can hang laundry, like the elliptical machine that's right next to it. And I finally gave in, and for Christmas, I went ahead and bought it. 82 bike rides later, I'm still on it. But for me now, it's become an integral part of starting my day, right? It's that time away from all the noise. It's that time to focus. It's got a trainer, so that really plays to how I work out and how I train. I've actually lost 15 pounds in the course of the last couple of months, which is nice for me because the older you get, the harder that is. But all positive. But what it does is it gives me a sense of calm. I mean, I add meditation to it in the morning. I stop and take a deep breath. I finally got like a half an hour in between all my calls today and walk the dog around the block just so that she can get some exercise, and so could I. How important is that to your well-being, your thinking through all of this?
So a few things that's very important for everyone listening. When you go through crisis, it triggers trauma or treasure. Trauma is it triggers those things that perhaps you've overcome. So now you were sleeping well, you're not sleeping as much. Or it triggers that treasure to tap into innovation, creative ideas, and you're just spot on. So self-care, to your point, Larry, taking a walk, having a routine in the morning where you just get your head wrapped around the day that is about to unfold, and going on a bicycle ride. If you are by yourself, reaching out on a phone call to call people that are not asking you for anything, but just to have a touch point to say, thinking about you, just wanted to say hi. All of those things are great ways to increase mental health. One of the things that we are going to hear about, unfortunately, when we come out of COVID-19, there's going to be a severe spike in PTSD, where people are just going to be like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Because they had to raid the grocery stores and do all these things and then be self-isolated. So make sure you walk, move around, read, listen to classical music or whatever your favorite choice of music, things that uplift you. Perhaps go old school, write a handwritten note or a letter to a loved one or a friend, but do something that keeps everything flowing so you don't allow your emotions to be hijacked by the news media.
I think the other thing too that's important, and you and I do this a lot, is connecting with people. As we were saying this, I was thinking back to 9/11 and all that we were going through back then, and my first time traveling after that was coming up on one of my class reunions from high school. I had never attended a class reunion up to that point. The irony of it was, even before 9/11 came along, I already made the decision to attend this one. I think we were all at that point where most of us were no longer competitive. We were around long enough that we could define success differently, not like we did years before. But I got a call out of the blue, or note out of the blue, one of my best buddies in high school I hadn't talked to since we graduated. And he reminded me of a trip. And he realized I live in southern New Jersey. My parents lived right along the Delaware River. And so Mike and I grabbed my dad's little teeny tiny sailboat, and we went with the wind. We'd never sailed before. Got miles up towards Philadelphia and realized we were sailing with the wind. No one taught us tacking. About 5 hours later, after paddling with our arms, we got back. And we laughed about that, not having talked in 30 years, right? And reconnected. Same thing here. One of our members asked, where are you finding the motivation during these potential prolonged downtimes? Motivation is personal, and what do you do constantly to stay motivated? The exercise is a part of it, but I find time to connect. I've connected with some of our old friends at Disney, longtime people I just haven't talked to and said, and really it's just, are you doing okay? Do you need anything? I'm very active, as you know, in our Rotary Club here. And I reached out to our gang. There's that gang of 7 that we always sit together. And you've been to our meetings, that group of us. And I said, why don't we do a virtual happy hour on Thursday night? And so I'm setting it up on Zoom. We're going to sit at our houses with a cocktail or a glass of wine and just kind of gab like we typically would do at a Rotary meeting. We do it on our own. So that motivation really, to me, is the interconnectivity. And I will tell you this, and I've said this to our USPCA members many, many times. I get inspired by our members. As I'm looking at the comments and looking at the questions, we have some of the most phenomenal members you'd ever want to meet. And I've worked with small business people for years. I am one. I've never found a group more giving and more caring and more generous than this one. That's what gives me the inspiration that even after a long day at work, that I'm going to come up to a meeting like this and get out there and put my all into it. And it doesn't matter how tired I am, because these folks inspire me and their success inspires me. That's why I asked somebody like your caliber, join me. I want to share that message.
My pleasure. And here's the one thing I want to add just to mental health, Larry. If you are having emotional challenges, please talk to someone, seek professional help. Don't go through this alone. And I think within this association and this organization, you have people who care about you. Please don't allow your silence to go unheard. Share where you are. And there are people that I think will be there, and certainly seek professional help if you can.
That's a great point. I was obviously disappointed that we had to cancel our conference next year and move it to 2021, but I decided that was better than bankruptcy. So
yes,
you make those decisions. But that has always been an integral program for people to get together. There's learning, but there's nothing like connecting with old friends, meeting new friends. And certainly that's one of the powers of an association.
Yes.
All the other stuff is good, but it's that interconnectivity. And I would suggest that if people really need that, now's the time for members who haven't connected with other members to reach out on Facebook or email or make a phone call, whatever that is, because it's not only uplifting for the other member, it's uplifting for yourself too.
Awesome.
So it looks like we've hit our load on questions. Lots of thanks. Hopefully you can see them as well on your side as I can on mine. But on behalf of our members, I want to tell you, like I said, I love the conversations I have with Simon, and I will tell you that he and I make a lot of noise when we go out and have breakfast in the morning. We tend to have a lot of fun, but it also allows us to brainstorm these kinds of things, where we get a chance to take what is really the real life experiences that we have and condense them into something that we can share with other people. And so Simon gets to do it with masses. I love doing it for our smaller group, but really what it does is, I hope, inspires people to come along. So I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us for being here tonight.
Hey, Larry, thank you. And everyone, Larry is a big book reader. So we talk from time to time. We had virtual coffee the other day, and he suggested a number of books. And I downloaded Disrupt Yourself, Character. He's a big David Brooks reader, Range, because that's the power of a relationship. A person who wants to help you become better. And I referred some books to him. So you are blessed to have Larry and Rob leading this great organization. They're some of the finest human beings on the planet. And I'm just happy to say, after 20 years, we still are friends. And even though he kicked my butt as a leader, I have more respect for him now because it's helped me become a better man, a better father, and a better business leader. So thank you, Larry, so much.
It was all done with love, as you know.
Yes, a velvet chainsaw.
I still haven't put it down. So, and I told you I'm going to laugh. So, So I think the one more most important thing that everybody understands, we're going to be doing this, like I said, twice a week. And I may keep it going on for a long time, but as I said, my goal right now is to kind of get us through the short term, and then we're going to see how this works. But I just love the interaction. I love hearing from our members. I love seeing people on board. This Friday at 6:30, we're going to have Chef Deb Cantrell from Dallas. She's going to be with us. The link and everything will go out tomorrow morning. I've got to write everything up tonight because I didn't want to overstep what I was doing with Simon and screw up the webinar system until I completely figure it out. But Deb's going to join us. She's going to talk about proactive and profitable right now. The tagline is going to be navigate and scale your business in the marketplace. So it'll be a chance to take the big picture information we just got from Simon and begin to scale it to your businesses. So I'm really excited about that too. Deb's a personal chef. She's done dynamic work with her business. And we've got more coming next week and the following week and the following week. We're going to be here from you. We are all together going to get on the other side of this. And so, again, Simon, my friend, thank you on behalf of USPCA. It's been an absolutely wonderful time with you tonight, and look forward to doing it again.
For sure. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody.